Hello, and welcome back to the Argyle CFO Summit. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Femi Fauye, Head of Real Estate Transactions at WeWork. We are excited to have Femi and our panelists for a panel discussion titled DEI in Finance, Promoting Diversity for Long-Term Success. Welcome, Femi. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to discuss DE&I in finance. My name is Femi Fauye. I'm currently the Global Head of Real Estate Transactions at WeWork. Additionally, I'm the founder of a nonprofit organization called DREAM, dedicated to promoting financial literacy and financial empowerment amongst urban youth across cities across the United States. Today, we have a great panel for a very exciting discussion. Before we get going, I want to introduce the panelists. Let's start with Sandy Pham.
Great. Hi, I'm Sandy Pham. I'm VP for Finance, People, and Culture at the Permanente Federation, which is the physician side of Kaiser Permanente.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandy. Next up, introducing Carolina.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carolina Veira. I'm currently the VP of Community and Corporate Partnerships for CareMax. I lead the areas of sustainability, as well as DEI, corporate social responsibility, and social impact. So happy to be here and be part of this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolina. And last but not least, we have Leah.
Hello, everyone. I'm a VP Finance and Corporate Controller of Shoreline Education. So I oversaw accounting, closing, and planning and budgeting process, the finance function for Shoreline Education. Shoreline is education service provider to help students who wants to come over to United States for better education globally. So, if you know anyone who is overseas and pursue better education in the United States, you can look for Shoreline.
Awesome. So as you can see, everyone, we have a great panel with very unique perspectives that I think will make a very vibrant and wholesome conversation. To get going, I like to set the stage for the conversation for any panel that I lead so that we fully understand what it is we're talking about, especially as it pertains to the topic of DE&I in finance. I think there's a lot written about it. It's been covered ad nauseum, for many, many years. You have organizations like the Robert F. Twigo Foundation that has been dedicated to the mission of diversifying the financial services industry. But where are we? So some quick stats to help sort of ground us all to understand sort of where we are with the problem, as I will call it, of DEI. So first off, only 13 executives in all the S&P 500 are Black CEOs, literally only 13. Secondly, as of 2022, there are 110 companies across the S&P 500, as well as the Fortune 500 that had female CFOs. Thirdly, on Wall Street banks, there's only one major bank that has a diverse CEO, and that's Citi, that appointed Jane Fraser a couple of years ago. So only one major Wall Street bank has a female CEO. No Wall Street banks have a Black CEO or CFO. Citi does have a Black CFO. That's Mark Fraser. My apologies. If you go a little deeper and talk about Wall Street in general and talk about the problem of diversity, if you look at the senior level managers across Wall Street firms and financial services as a whole, only 1% of those roles are held by African American men and women. Only 2% of those roles are held by Latinx men and women. If you double click on private equity, for example, the Carlyle Group, only 3% of their senior-based staff identify as African American. So clearly, I think we can all agree and understand that there is a diversity issue as it relates to the financial services industry. Post George Floyd, there were a lot of public statements about efforts and commitments to diversity. A lot of companies posted a black tile on social media on the day in solidarity. And what we thought would have been a great awakening and a reckoning as we sit here today in 2023, I think many will argue not much have changed. And so my first question that I posed to the panel, is DE&I dead? Is it just a myth, or is there actual tangible change happening? Sandy, let's get your view.
Okay, great. Actually, thank you for those sobering statistics. So actually at Kaiser Permanente, I'm happy to say that we actually have a Black CEO. He's our second, Greg Adams, following Bernard Tyson, our previous CEO, who is also a Black man. I didn't realize it was as rare today as what I heard you cited. However, I have to admit, in terms of it, I don't think DEI is dead, but I do think, like any large initiative, it is going through a transition. We all have seen it in the financial industry. Anytime when there's a new regulations, the checkbooks are open, and basically you have social media and you have your competitors making the business case for you. In fact, you would have to make a business case in your organization why you're not doing something. Now, I think we are past that first point. We are at the point where right now it's like any strategic initiative. In order to continue to make investments, I think it has to be proven to show a business case. Beyond the, hey, what activities are you doing? Toward your point, Femi, what are we getting out of it, right? And in terms of that, I think that's for those of us who support it, we have to become much more adept at being able to articulate the business case for DEI, not just socially why it's important and why it's a good activity for culture, but what does it mean for the bottom line? What does it mean for our organization? What does it mean in terms of effectiveness? What does it mean to our competitive advantage in the industry that we work?
Awesome. Thank you, Sandy. Anyone want to jump in? Carolina, Leah?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you sharing some numbers. And just let me tell you, of all Fortune 500 companies, only 9% are women CEOs. So there's a lot to be done as well on that spectrum. And we're on that space, and we're not even talking or giving numbers around brown communities, around people with special abilities. There's diversity. It's more than just, as we all know, white and Black. It goes beyond that. But to me, and to your question of is DEI dead? I tend to believe that it's not. Obviously, that's what we're promoting, creating those spaces where people feel included, because we need their input, we need their ideas. To be present or to provide better services, we need people to collaborate and have a pulse in the community, because that's what your customer, your client needs. In our case, we're in healthcare, so to be more in tune with what the patients needs, we need to have people who can speak their same language, meaning they understand their needs, they understand their wants, they understand what they're going after, right? What they are pursuing. But beyond that, and I love what Sandy mentioned, hey, let's prove why we need it with numbers, because at the end of the day, leadership will buy in, like we've spoken before, if we're showing results, right? There has to be a tie-in with the bottom line, the financials. And it's not hard to accomplish if we track numbers, if we tie it to some sort of revenue or decrease in expenses. There's plenty of ways. We just have to be innovative and creative. But yes, to me, it's not that. We just have to keep pushing for it, and we need to be aware of, reminded of the limitations that other groups have had in the past to create and opportunities for those groups. We need everyone's input to be successful.
Agreed. Leah, what's your view?
Yeah, I think DEI can never be dead, because the purpose for the business is for solving certain problem, no matter which business is to solve a certain problem for the people in the society. So we live in the society become to be globalized day by day. So it's more diversified. In order to solve these problems, so business needs to have the DEI, needs to understand the stakeholders' view, what their challenges are, what is appropriate solution for different group of people. So this is why I say I never believe DEI is the key for a business to be successful. And I appreciate the number statistics you brought up. Also, I want to mention it's been so many years still, we say, like the number is not improving so much. But I want to, add on, when I worked with for Merck years ago, our CEO was a Black gentleman, outstanding. But I also, appreciate Sandy's inputs, for any, social improvements or initiative, it's going to take course. So we're going to, as far as we're working, we're aware of, like the DEI, and we're aware of, like the DEI is helping the corporation. And also, I think, years ago, I took a look at the, so Fortune 500 companies, whenever, they have a good diversified workforce, their bottom line is much better than those companies that have a less diversified, workforce and culture. So I think, at this stage of a game, we know, I think, almost everybody would agree DEI cannot be dead, and we have to work on that. It's a great initiation, and to this society and to our every business or non-business. It's just the matter of what is like what does it mean for the next stage, how we're going to like move forward regarding to the DEI to make a bigger impact, positive impact to this society.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. I do agree with many of your insights. And so, Carolina, let's double click on something you said, which I think is interesting as it relates to this concept of DEI not being dead, but being alive, and a useful metric that we all should pay attention to. Are we of the belief that the term DE&I has become too politicized and too large of an umbrella term, so much so that you're almost diluting the individual components that make up diversity? You're not giving each its due amount of attention. For example, by lumping in, by using the broad umbrella term of DE&I, are you sidetracking or are you forgetting about the disabled population, right? Or are you forgetting about diversity amongst ethnicity and in terms of Black and Latino population? Are you, or the diminishing sort of the gender conversation, right? So by putting it all under one house, do you now have these groups competing for the limited amount of opportunities, the roles, versus each having their own specific segment and conversation to focus on? What's your view on that?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Listen, I understand that the needs for each group are going to be not necessarily the same across the board. However, I believe that as an organization or as a country or a city, whatever you name it, but in this case, as a corporation, we need to be in tune with the needs of what we what we want to achieve, right? What do we want our team members to look like, right? Do we want a diverse community and within our groups? So we do need to kind of cater to the different groups and attract the different groups. So we need to establish relationships with Latino and Latinx organizations. We need to establish relationships with Asian, Black communities and organizations as well, and attract that talent. The whole idea is to be intentional about what we're trying to accomplish. We know that we cannot solve all the problems in the world. However, we can create opportunities that for each group. We just need to have, and that's the beauty of having diverse talent, because they can look into those opportunities for you. I almost feel like, obviously, there's an opportunity when you're thinking about diversity to have an ERG, and that ERG becomes your VRG, right? They become your sounding board. They become your new ideas. They become your second board of directors, almost in a way, where you can really promote something that is going to attract that talent that you're going after. And that's not only going to benefit the other team members, but also the customers, right? The way of doing business. You're going to attract also diverse suppliers, and you're going to have a bigger impact on the economy. That's the way that I feel. But to your point, we need to be intentional and cater and open and create opportunities for everyone. That's the idea behind it. Maybe it's not 10 opportunities, but maybe it's one available for everyone.
I'll follow up on that on my question with an additional thought. One point of feedback that I've heard from either current D&I professionals or just anecdotally in conversations with folks across industries, other senior leaders, is that the DE&I sort of initiatives in post George Floyd have seemingly felt co-opted to benefit white women versus the other broader group. So let's talk about that as well, because I think we want this to be a very frank and open conversation. So Sandy, sort of what are your views on that, sort of building upon what Carolina just mentioned?
I think that's very interesting that you brought that up, because I've heard a lot of studies like that as well. When you look at affirmative action or everything else, or women on boards, whatever initiative you want to talk about into diversity, I've heard some of the same statistics as you, where it's actually the greatest group that benefit happens to be white women, toward your point. And I think where it gets politicized, Femi, my thoughts are this, is that it is important that we pay attention to the numbers, because at the end of the day, the numbers really tell what's changing, right? But you have to be careful that's not a numbers game. And I'll just use a personal example of that. So when I joined my organization, I actually did raise my hand to join their little EID committee. We reversed the things here. And they said, oh, okay, but actually we have enough representation. And I was thinking, interesting. You have enough representation. Now, it is true what I show up on camera as an Asian female, but I also happen to identify as disabled. So thank you for including that, Caroline, because often people forget that in terms of, due to a vehicular incident a few years ago, people now in a remote environment, they actually will surprise when they meet me and they see that I need aid in terms of walking. But I thought how interesting that you just said, you can't check the box and say, I fulfill my diversity requirement, because look at me bring this person over here to stand here and show you. Because when you look at it, just, yes, I am Asian. English is my second language. I wasn't born here. I am part of the immigrant populations, grew part of my life in a refugee camp. Are you saying that you got all of that covered already? Well, right. You're either the most awesome EID committee I've ever met, or, hey, let's think about how deep and how integrated you are really living what we're trying to do. Okay, so I would say, Femi, in terms of that, it can't just be a numbers game where you want to show the representation and you stop. Toward Caroline's point, do you embrace it? Do you have all the different areas covered? Is there a viewpoint that we are missing if we don't have a voice in the room? Or do we all feel so amazingly qualified that we feel that we can represent those voices not in the room? Because then, yeah, I think there's a bigger problem culturally then.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do think we think very one-dimensionally when it comes to the topic of DE&I, and we're forgetting sort of the nuances and sort of the interconnectivity between various groups and various backgrounds that actually bring a greater impact to an organization, even in finance, but across border organizations.
And Femi, to your point, you have to remember that we can develop a strategy that it's not going to be accomplished within a year, right? The whole idea is that it's a long-term strategy, and maybe you don't hit all those boxes, right, in 1 year. But that's why you have a strategy, because you're working intentionally to reach out and for your DEI council, for your team members, for everyone to look more diverse and think about the different, what diversity means, right? And I would love to meet your DEI council and Sandy, and just I appreciate that. Hopefully you're part of it and just bringing light to all those other needs that are out there.
Absolutely. Leah, so a question for you, if we pivot a little bit, I want to talk about current events. And so the thing that jumps out, I think, to me and many of us on this call are, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, the Supreme Court in the United States shot down affirmative action based on the case from Harvard that was brought forth. And so I think there's going to be far-reaching implications, on college campuses, but I also think there potentially can be far-reaching implications across industry, and finance being one of them. And so, Leah, what's your view on that? Where do you think DE&I is impacted and where it goes from here following the Supreme Court's decisions?
This is a very interesting topic, and also very controversial at this current moment, because, the affirmative action has been, implemented in the college environment, especially for those, prestigious college for quite a long time. So I think, you know, for to state for the United States, I think, you know, workforce has been benefited from the educated students, you know, diversified educated students according to the, you know, affirmative, you know, action requirements, you know. So I have been working for a for-profit organization in my entire career. So we just business took the luxury to get the well-trained, diversified students from college. And then we just never specify at our recruiting level, say, oh, we have to implement, you know, like a diversify or affirmative action type of format into our recruiting process. We just look for the best people to fit for this position. So then we take this as granted, and then we form our DEI, you know, actions internally after the recruiting process. But after the affirmative action, and I think everybody should think about the and going forward, the pipeline, DEI pipeline, and the implementation. In implication, what we're going to business going to face, and what, you know, college is going to think about it. To me, I think, you know, like we need to also take a look at the DEI and the diversity. Really think about what does it mean. Does it mean, you know, just as an old-fashioned at college admission, as it is a format? We have to take a look at the students by, you know, like race, skin color, origin, you know, and religion, all those type of perspective, or we start to think about the diversity is really the representation of a different value, voice, and the needs, right? And to be able to address someone's voice, every group's voice, no matter, you know, what they are, and they have the needs. Just one name a few, just we mentioned the different people coming from, you know, like a different background, you know, Black, Hispanic, Asian, white, you know, even disability, you know, like whoever, you know, whether those group, we have different cultural background, we have different education background, the different needs. All the groups' voice has been addressed, has been represented inside of the, you know, like the society to, you know, be considered. Is all the groups' problem properly being solved? None of the group is, you know, like being underrepresented. So I think, you know, probably in the future, what we're going to think is, okay, the college is going to take a look at, you know, diversity into different perspective, I would assume, because this is too fresh. I don't haven't say, you know, like a college has been, you know, like release any, you know, like really solution, or, you know, after the Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling has been, you know, released. So colleges hasn't been, you know, really, you know, take a look at if we are going to, you know, release any information or message to the society, say, you know, like if any action else, you know, like we need to implement to supplement for the affirmative action, you know, like I think there should be, you know, but on the same token, I think everybody, you know, like for example, for finance organization, we need to think about, you know, here you go, you know, and going forward, you know, do we, for example, for my, you know, like a Shoreline business, we deal with international students, you know, on the day-to-day basis. So everybody come from different background, speak different language, come to United States to get the better education. What is their education goal? I think I have been, our business has been dealing with diversified population a lot, coming from a different country culture. It's not, they are not, those students are not originally born, grow up in United States. They are very diversified. So definitely they address their needs, looking for help differently in order to help them to make the better future, reach their education goal in United States. So this is a big chunk of diversity knowledge to help to be able to put into this business to be able to help them. So I think this is a very affirmative action. Ruling is a very controversial topic at this moment. I think everybody right now is the whole society has their own opinion. But I think eventually goal for me is let's think about it. The diversity is for the problem solving, for helping people. What does it mean? It should not be in terms of format. Just by looking at the gender, cultural, and race. I think it's more look at does we have enough the workforce, and do we have the voice and the knowledge to address different groups issue and question and provide the solution to help each group to be able to form effective problem solving. This is what I'm thinking.
Awesome, thank you, Leah. Sandy, I'll pose the same question to you. What do you think the impact, or what are your views on the potential impact of the recent Supreme Court's decisions on affirmative action, or as it relates to the finance industry, but also hiring out of colleges and universities?
Right. I know there's been a lot of speculation in terms of whether or not this will have implications in terms of affirmative action and hiring. And I don't know where the legalities will lie, but I think just if we all look at it from a pure logic point of view, the reality is if this gives us a less diversified student body, a less diversified graduating class, that means all of us, regardless of industry, finance, healthcare, we have a less diversified workforce to recruit from. Right. So what that means in terms of it is there will be a ramification. I think in terms of it, so I'm in California is where I resided. I don't know if people are aware of this, but University of California and the Cal State system, they actually got rid of affirmative action for admissions 10 years ago. And they were the first to write a letter asking the Supreme Court to consider this, because they have evidence from 10 years since that time. They have never been able to recover in terms of their diversity goals. And they have had to make greater efforts in terms of outreach, spending a lot more money than they did previously, and to have a less represented student body is what they have said. And they're still, I would like to think, recruiting from an extremely diversified community. So I think without a doubt, there is going to be an impact in regards to it, regardless of what we think, because I can't imagine that. And that's with 10 years of actual experience. It's not theory.
No, I appreciate that. So as we think about finance, I think as professionals, we're all very numbers and quantitatively driven, which then often leads us to trying to figure out solutions and business outcomes that have a quantifiable impact. Let's apply that to DE&I. How do we tie DE&I to the bottom line so that CFOs, SVPs, heads of finance, EVPs all understand and can quantify the impact, or the positive impact that DE&I will have on the business? Carolina, what are your thoughts on that?
It's going to be as simple as tying it to your goals for bonuses and pay increases. I mean, that's what companies are doing currently, and it seems to work because that leadership team pays attention to how their workforce look like and how their teams look like. And obviously with diversity, you're also talking about different ages and differences in experiences. So I have to say that it has to be tied back to how people say that where it hurts the most. But there has to be, for leaders to be engaged into that conversation, they need to see it impacting them. But obviously you can also track the results regarding how does the makeup of your companies look like, of your clientele look like, meaning where are they coming from, what are the demographics. That also speaks about diversity, and seeing, at least in the healthcare industry, when I bring in and when I recruit talent that it's more diverse, it has an impact on the patient makeup, in their health outcomes, right? Are they speaking about how they feel? Are they speaking about their needs? So that's another way that you can track it. Are you losing patients or are you keeping them around, right? Are they, how do they feel? Do they feel satisfied with the treat and the care, the quality of care, or do they not? And same thing applies to, I would imagine something like a university or a college, where are the students being included? Do they feel like they have a voice? What type of what's being created for the students? How do they feel? Are they talking to their friends about them? And that's who you're recruiting. So that would be my answer. Yeah.
Leah, what are your views on that? How do we tie DE&I as finance professionals to the business outcomes?
So there is, basically there is a direct, relationship regarding to, again, operational efficiency. So when you move all these, when you have better operation, effective operation, so your bottom line automatically improved. This is short term. For the long term, we have been saying, creativity, increased, innovation coming from a diverse, operation environment. In terms of finance, I just share a story, really quick here. While I was work at ADP years ago, as an Asian woman, I was trying to move up into my corporate lender. So I asked around. There were, African employee resource group. There were like a Hispanic employee resource group, but there is non-Asian. Asia keeps to, hardworking, but very quiet. So to my surprise, the whole organization didn't have, the Asia employee resource group. So I was like, so if you don't have one, I create one. So I built up, I become to be the chairman and, of Asia Resource Group. I led the initiative. You know what, after that, we started, we get a, leadership buy-in. So just by at the beginning is rationalize the initiative, what is going to improve the bottom line on the long run. After the, our networking start to, we roll out the activities, and we had this started to roll out the program, have the, like a mentor, have the, like seminars. And we, ADP historically had a difficulty for the small business sectors, they had a difficulty to roll out to the Asia market, Asia small business. And throughout our, training, and there were, like a couple, Asia leaders started arising from the process. They have the language ability, they have the background, cultural background information in order to be able to, quickly and better engage to the local community. So, they started to the, we couple Asia business leader arising from those process, and they start to take over the, like the Asia market used to be, like performed by the, like the other group of people who didn't really have the Asia market business knowledge. So really, get the rock and roll for the Asian market for the small business sector and bring significant revenue increase and also bottom line to ADP's business. So this is on long term, definitely, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. It sounds like you were able to really tie a business impact and the diversity case in one, which is really spot on to what the question is. Sandy, so a question for you as we pivot a slightly is that, how do we hold our organizations and all organizations, Fortune 500, S&P 500, so on and so forth, how do we hold them accountable to these D&I efforts that they've all proclaimed to have? More specifically, as we talk about sort of the pipeline, quite often in finance, you commonly hear this refrain from the majority that they can't find the folks, right? They can't find the folks interested in doing the finance job. They can't find, the Black investment banker, the Asian investment banker, the disabled investment banker. But I think there's more than enough data out there to prove that that is a fallacy, and it's really a matter of laziness, right? So you have organizations like MLT, SEO, the Robert F. Twigo Foundation, the list goes on, and there's more than enough of capable and really top-notch talent that is out there from diverse populations. So how do we hold senior leaders of these banks and major financial institutions, financial services companies accountable to these initiatives?
I think what you brought up is a really great point. One of my responsibilities, people and culture, which includes recruitment. And one of the things that everyone forgets, as a manager, people tend to be a little lazy. They basically want to find their ideal candidate is someone who's doing the same job somewhere else, but they really want them to come here and do it for them. So we need to think beyond that, right? And part of it is we need to recruit in our own backyard. So toward your point, you're not going to go and find that Black banker who's doing it at another bank and you want to move him over to this bank. Is there somebody, you have diversity in your ranks, we all do. Is there someone, that's where you start your pipeline, right? Listen, they may be awesome and happy at their job. My guess is they shouldn't have to move out in order to move up. And if those are the signals we're giving people, we need to really think through on that in terms of, hey, be serious about those goals in terms of where people want to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. Be serious and intentional in terms of your specific diversity population. And then, hey, supervisor, what are you doing to help them with that? Are you speaking up for them when they're not in the room? And part of it is, hey, are you making sure internally that those people are aware when there is an opportunity at the next level? It doesn't mean that you're saying, hey, they're slotted for it, but do the people and diversity that you have, are they even aware of the opportunities to move forward? Are you giving them the stretch assignments that they can speak to, even if they're not in terms of those roles? Are you putting them on extra assignment that allows them to build up their network across their functional group so that other people know their skill? So Femi, I love what you said, because I think it is all up to us to develop the pipeline. I was with an organization previously, and one of the things that we did, I don't think we did it as well as we could have, is that we created a database in terms of people self-identifying, diverse people self-identifying, where would they like to be in 5 or 10 years? And we did something super simple, because most of the time when people are looking, they're not looking at their own organization job board. But we just started an automatic mailing when there's another role that is within that family that Leah or someone identified for, you send them the thing. That's all you're doing. You're making them aware that there's opportunity there. It's up to them in terms of timing, whether they want to apply, whether they think they're a good fit. But unless they're sitting around scrounging your job board, or they're lucky enough to have someone like Femi said, hey, are you aware that that's open up? You're doing something that just makes people aware of the opportunity. And that alone is also creating the pipeline. So a lot of it isn't things that involve money or a lot of time. A lot of it is just taking the extra consideration and be mindful of what are you doing with the diversity you already have in your pipeline.
Andy, I appreciate that. One mantra that I have that I share with my majority peers, and here at WeWork, I'm the global co-head of our diversity council and sort of all our initiatives around diversity. And sort of my common refrain is we need to move from allyship to advocacy. And I say that meaning allyship is great. We need allies, but I actually need people in the room advocating and strongly putting their social capital on the line other diverse members to join the room, right? If you're an ally, but you're not actually in the room pounding the table and willing to put your own personal well-being, and that comes with the challenge. But if you aren't willing to do that, then your allyship actually becomes useless to the efforts of what we're trying to achieve as it relates to diversity, especially in finance that, you know, maintain very old school and somewhat very archaic views on workforce and population. And so you really need people of the majority, and you have to get the buy-in to get them to understand that not only is it important for their overall well-being, but it's important for the overall well-being of the organization that we all are a part of. And that's a tough conversation for many to swallow, because, you know, it's easy to be an ally to something if it doesn't really cost you anything, right? You know, I can always say I'm an ally to women, but if I actually don't do anything to help promote, advance, and increase the number of women in a role, whether it be my peers, you know, my managers, my juniors, then I'm not. What am I being an ally to? So there has to be an inherent cost to me that I am giving up something, but it's for the greater good. And so, Carolina, with that in mind, how do we get in finance in particular, how do we just get this fabric of turning allyship into action across the table, across the entire organization, which does include the majority of the population?
Oh, you said it perfectly. Make sure that there's diverse people in those rooms that are part of the decision making. But I think something that we can all do is, once we get to those roles where we are making decisions, we're part of the strategy, we also bring somebody along with us. Like you said, we have to say their names, or maybe it was Sandy, I don't remember anymore, but say their names and recommend them for either roles, for projects, for initiatives that are going to not only be beneficial to them, but also the company, right? We need to advocate for each other. Sometimes we are not comfortable advocating for ourselves, and it's okay, it's a work in progress. That doesn't apply to everyone. However, it's easier for some people to advocate for others and say and speak great things, the great things that the other person does. So I think that's part of what you mentioned, moving on from ally to advocate, speaking about the other ones, mentioning their names, involving them in your projects, mentioning their names for other projects.
That's a great point. And so even building upon that, you know, I often say that you have to see it to believe it, right? And so for me to even believe that a career in finance was possible, I had to see someone who looked like me in a similar role or a few roles ahead of me that I could kind of see the path, right? It's very difficult, and some people can do it, but not everyone, but it's very difficult to kind of see a path forward in an industry like finance where you don't have any representation, you don't see anyone who even like slightly resembles your background, speaks the same language, has the same affinity for you to even understand it's a role that you want to do. And for folks from underrepresented backgrounds, that presents a double challenge. So Leah, how do we go about solving this, right? How do we go about getting greater visibility into finance and finance roles to the next generation behind us so that they see it's possible to pursue this career path?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a very good question. So I think for all of us, we always, looking for someone, to be able to follow the suit or to inspire us. I think when we, move up to our career path. So I think to build up the pipeline, starting if as we build up the DEI initiative in the organization, I think the best way is for us to be advocate, to be able to identify the quality, from the DEI, from a different, business needs, and also the employees. The current, workforce is demanding the quality of the employees' knowledge and the representation, and then advocate for them. For example, in the finance organization, if we are able to identify who is able to address, I have, for example, I have a person in my team, I definitely in my team I have a few minorities, women, and people from overseas. So if I look at them, who is able to understand, to be able to coach them successfully. This is the quality we need in our financial team to be able to work efficiently, and to either way it's a language skill, or is whoever the employee is able to, is very comfortable to be able to share their concern, or raise their hands to be the go-to person. What quality is that where the team is looking for? So I advocate that quality. So when this person is pass through the person who is coming from she is Asia, coming from Vietnam, and after she pass a language barrier and cultural barrier, and to comfortably be successful in her basic role, she is going to become to carry the quality she used to rely on. We are going to ask her to develop her quality further, to be able to carry the more responsibility, and then help the team in the future. So I think if we really lack of someone you can mirror to, you as a leader, when we say inside of our organization you have a certain group of people currently is underrepresented, I think we definitely have we as a leader, we have to be able to identify the quality who is able to support, help, and advocate for this group of people. After we develop them, we are going to encourage them to develop their coaching and supervising and helping skill, and then to promote them and to move them forward. This is how I say, long-termly, this is not a short-term task. It's going to be on a long-term basis, right? And then take a course of time, and we are able to do that to foster our diversity inside of the one organization, starting from one organization first, and then expand to more and more.
No, I appreciate that. So I'll take a question from the crowd that's come in. And the question is, what do you foresee to be the biggest challenges facing diversity in finance moving forward? I'll throw it to anybody. Sandy, let's give your take on that one.
I think it's what we talked about, which is being able to continue to show the business value of it, so that the organization still invests money and attention to it. But I also believe with great confidence, because we're all finance people. If there aren't people who can understand where value shows, it should be us. We should be the one being able to articulate it. Not only that, advocating for it and teaching the senior leaders how it is. And it may be at first that we can't draw a direct causal effect relationship, but it's about correlation. But we need to keep it moving so that people shouldn't feel that whatever's been done has been achieved. That's where I think the real challenge is, and it's dangerous at a point where people look at whatever scorecard said, oh, it's good enough, we don't need to do anymore, because I absolutely don't believe that will be true.
Absolutely. Another question, Caroline, this one's for you. With the recent onslaught of ESG from, political factions of our political spectrum here in the country, do you see that having an impact on diversity in finance?
Everything will have an impact on diversity as a whole. And but now I believe it's going to be challenging, right? Those who work in DEI, we're going to have there's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, the Supreme Court's decision to an affirmative action, swiping away or stripping away LGBTQ plus rights, it has been like the cherry on the top of the DEI, I don't know, hate train, or I don't know how to call it, but we're going to have challenging times. But I think that we have to continue being that loud voice of advocating for it, of showing the results, showing numbers behind the work that we're doing, but also partnering with other organizations. I believe in working together to accomplish something. So no matter if we're in the ESG field per se, or the DEI field, or the finance field, we all have to work together to bring that diversity, to bring that sense of belonging, because it's going to have an impact on the bottom line, on revenue, on expense, on retention of our employees. All of that adds up. So I believe that we're in the perfect position to continue being that voice and continue being that representative person or a group of people who are leading the way. And it's not an easy task, but I think it's important to be those people leading the way. And I speak for you, Femi, Sandy, Leah. We're all in this together, and we're all just trying to shine a light on the value of diversity and just continue being DEI, that pillar for the work that we're doing and for the success of organizations across the board.
Absolutely. One of the, well, looks like, unfortunately, we are actually out of time. I'm sorry. This is a really great conversation. We really clearly got into it, lost track of time. I really appreciated all the views that you shared. On behalf of the audience, Sandy, Leah, Catalina, I would like to say thank you for sharing your perspective. Thank you for being vulnerable, and thank you for answering the questions intentionally, but also very thoughtfully. I really have a lot of takeaways from this, to go back and implement here at WeWork. So thank you all. I don't think we have time for any closing remarks, but I want to say thank you again. Thank you to the audience for joining us. Everyone, please have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for such an insightful panel discussion. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Have a great day.